Welcome to How to Get New Clients from Networking Events, Part 3. In this session, we're going to talk about what to do at the event. We're going to talk about how to be memorable, tips to introducing yourself, the name badge, and of course your business card, which I mentioned in the last session a little bit. Love this quote by Gary Rormayer. Effective networkers know how to make a positive first impression. They understand their environment and know what is acceptable and unacceptable conversation and attire. They know how to get people to talk about themselves, their business, their desires, and dreams. Keep that in mind when you are networking. Let's talk about the introduction first. So you want to say your first and last name and your company. Now in the last section, I mentioned about your tagline, etc. You probably wouldn't do that right when you meet somebody, but after you've been introduced to somebody or you introduce yourself, they're going to say, oh, when I introduce myself as Heidi Richards Mooney of Redhead Marketing, people will say, well, what is Redhead Marketing? What do they do? And then I could go into my tagline and maybe that cute little phrase that I mentioned about social media marketing. If it's taking you more than 30 minutes a day, hire the redhead, you'll have more time to play. But keep those things in mind. You also want to make eye contact. Now, this is a cultural thing, so you want to make sure that it's appropriate and proper etiquette to make eye contact. For instance, in most cases in the United States, networking events, people expect you to make eye contact. In fact, when you don't make eye contact, people don't trust you. Now, in other cultures and other countries, that's not always the case. For instance, take the Asian culture. In Japan, if you were to meet someone in Japan, or if you were to be introduced to a dignitary from Japan or someone from Japan who is visiting, you probably wouldn't make eye contact. You may glance at them, but you would bow. You may not even shake their hand. So you need to know what is appropriate when you're making your introductions, depending on your networking event and situations. For the most part, making eye contact, shaking hands, you need to know the proper way to shake hands. You need to repeat the other person's name. When you repeat the other person's name as you're being introduced, it helps create that memory of the person's name. If you don't repeat it, you won't have as good a chance of remembering it unless you just have one of those memories. And when they ask, you can give the very brief intro of what you do, as I mentioned in the previous example. And then the one thing about being memorable is your smile. You want to smile. Now, you don't want to smile like you're up to something or, you're like you look a little too happy, but you want to be genuine and you want to smile because people are attracted to people who smile. They're more open and friendly appearing. So make sure you smile. When someone looks your way, smile and glance or nod. That might give them the confidence to come up and say hello to you. When you go to meet somebody, you want to smile. So smiling is very important and appropriate. Other ways to be memorable. For men or women, if you wear ties, wearing a tie that says something or has a meaning or is the latest rage. For instance, Star Wars, the new Star Wars just came out. It's the anniversary of Star Wars, the original Star Wars, and it's just amazing all of the things going on in the community about Star Wars. So if you were wearing a tie about Star Wars and someone came up to you and they were a Star Wars fan or aficionado, then that would be a great conversation starter. I put this little airplane brooch here because I have a friend who used to network quite a bit. Her name is Sandy, and she worked for one of the local horse tracks in Hollywood. And I loved, every time I saw Sandy, she had an airplane brooch. And the first time I met her, I asked her about it because it was just a beautiful brooch. And she said it's because she survived an airplane crash. So it was a great conversation starter because how many people do you know have survived an airplane crash? So we got to talking about airplanes and what it was like and where she was going. And then we started talking about other places we've been. Well, soon we became great friends. And for as long as she was there, I got all the business from the track. She referred my company to everybody she knew because I showed interest in her and I made a point of saying, wow, that's really cool. Another friend of mine always wore a pin to networking events that said "No guts, no glory." Now he never wore a tie. He was an electrician, but his collar of his shirt with long sleeves. He always looked professional, but he was an electrician. Again, he did not wear a tie. He didn't wear a tie or a suit to work, so he didn't wear them to networking events. He dressed appropriately. But that caught my eye the first time, and I just loved it. And it's funny because after about a year, he gave it to me. He thought I don't know why he gave it to me, but I thought, wow, I was just so honored. Jeff said, "Here, I want you to have this," and I was just taken aback because I always commented about that. I always say, "Jeff, I love your pin. I love your pin," because I totally agree with that. In networking or anything you do in life, no guts, no glory, right? So I guess because I'm an entrepreneur and a risk taker. So wearing something that people will take notice of. Another friend of mine, not really a friend, but somebody I know pretty well, Rita Craig. Her and her husband own a car dealerships in South Florida. Every event she attends, she wears a hat. That has become her trademark. So when you see her, she's always wearing a hat. Rita Case, I'm sorry, from Rick and Rita Case. And they're amazingly giving individuals. And every time you see Rita, she's always got a really cool hat on. And it's always different. She doesn't wear the same hat all the time. And it's always appropriate to the occasion. If she's going to a baseball game, I'm sure she's wearing a baseball cap. So it's really cool that when you see people like that who you can remember because of these type of things that they have, and they become memorable in the community. You mention a person, you might mention a person's name, "Oh, the hat lady," or and for me, because I have red hair, I don't really need to I wear a lot of turquoise and teal because that tends to be a great color for me and people always remember it. But because I have red hair still, people remember me for that. So I have a natural conversation starter, I guess, and usually I'm one or two, if not the only redhead in the room. So find ways to be memorable with something. If it's the way you dress, some item of clothing or anything, but be memorable because you want people to remember you so that they can use your services. And when they see you, they're like, "Oh, I've seen that person everywhere." Let's talk about the handshake because I think that it's important for everyone, but in particular for women who sometimes do not know how to shake hands. Now, we're not doing this in public, or I'd show you exactly how to shake hands and how to grip. You don't want to do a vice grip, but you definitely don't want to do this little three-finger wimpy handshake where you just kind of touch. They call it the limp fish. Touch the person. You want to give a nice firm handshake. This shows confidence. You want to, shake it gently but firmly, pumping a couple of times, not too long that it becomes uncomfortable, but enough to where you've said, "Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you." 2 or 3 pumps of the hand with a nice firm grip without a vice grip. Men tend to get a little bit overzealous sometimes and will give you too firm a handshake, and I sometimes will draw back from that, especially if I know the person's going to do that and I've met them before. But when you practice the handshake and you perfect it, then you gain more confidence as well. So find people whose handshakes are the type that don't make you uncomfortable, and you practice doing that same type of handshake. Now, again, the handshake is another cultural thing. To shake hands or not to shake hands also depends on your cultural upbringing, what's proper etiquette for the event, etc., etc. Some people in some cultures, lightly tapping or kissing on the cheeks, both cheeks, once, twice, 3 times, depending on what part of Europe you're from or South America, is appropriate. In some cultures, touching is totally forbidden. So you need to know those things when you are attending a networking event. You want to know where to wear your name badge. This is something that irks me, and I want to tell you, when I was looking for pictures to demonstrate this particular aspect of what to do at a networking event, I could not find but one picture of a person who had their name badge on the right, in the right position. Everybody had it on the left. So let me just tell you why you want to put it on the right hand side. You want to put it on the right hand side because when you're shaking hands, typically you're shaking hands with the right hand. So when a person is looking at you and crossing over, when they're looking at your right hand, they're looking toward the right of your right shoulder. So if your name badge is on the right, then it's going to make it easier for them to see your name. And also, when you introduce yourself, having a name badge is nice because it's convenient for the other person. So if appropriate, wear a name badge. You can get your own made, which I love. I like to have my own badge as opposed to one of these sticky ones that don't always stay and get caught in your hair, etc. But if that's all that is provided, then you use it, put it on the right side. Maybe put a little slogan at the bottom instead of the name of your company. So for instance, I put Rosalie Stone, I help people sleep better at night. And basically, you could be a chiropractor and say that. You could be an attorney or a doctor or a financial advisor. Whatever, you can use something like that. So people will say, well, what does that mean? And then they might ask you. So your name badge is for two purposes. So that you make it easy for the other person to address you by name without having to remember it, because not everybody is going to be really savvy in remembering names. So make it easy. You become more friendly looking because you do that, and more approachable. If you have a name badge, people are more likely to come up to you because they can say, oh, hi, Rosalie, how are you? Very nice to meet you. So those are important things to do. The other thing is, so that's about the name badge. Make sure you write it on the right-hand side. Maybe put a cute tagline. You put your first name, last name, or just your first name. You know, if your name is Cher, you don't need a last name. Okay, so let's talk about the business card dues. Well, the first thing you want to do with a business card is you want to ask for theirs. So when you ask for their business card, don't just say, hey, hi, how are you? Well, then you're talking, you're having a nice conversation. By the way, may I have your business card? I'd love to follow up with you. So then when you get their card, you look at it. Don't just say, oh, thank you, and put it in your pocket. Look at it. Maybe make a comment about it. Something that's on there, what it says, oh, I didn't know that you are in this area. And then the next thing you want to do is you've had a conversation with this person, so write a little something on it. And I like to keep with me the fine point markers, the Sharpie markers, because a lot of times people have these glossy cards that are hard to write on. And if you have one of those and you are offered a glossy card that can't be written on with a regular pen, having that in your possession at some point will really help to make it easy to write for you, because you're going to keep that. Also, when the other person does ask for your card, most of the time when you ask for theirs, they will ask for yours, unless it's just not appropriate. And then you can also, if you want, you could write something on your card for them as well. So Sharpie marker, fine point, good to have if you have it. Like I said, I always keep one in my purse. Comment on their card and then maybe put it away or hold it in your hand. Look at it. In some cultures, there's a way to hand a card to somebody. I like to hand a card to a person so that when they get it, they don't have to flip it over, turn it around. It's actually facing them in the right direction. They can read it. So that's, just a little something. Sometimes we're in a hurry. We just get it out of our wallet or our pocket really quick, and we hand it maybe on the run. Someone saying, hey, by the way, I need your business card. Don't get all stressed about it. But when the opportunity arises and it's appropriate and you have the time for it, if you do it that way, that even makes you look more professional. So even though these little nuances seem silly, when you add them all up, they are very important. So all of these things matter when it comes to networking events, and you look like a seasoned professional. You look like a person people want to do business with, and you also look like someone people would like to refer. So let's talk about the don'ts of business cards. Don't buy poor quality. And I will admit, I've been guilty of this when I've been in a hurry. And if you're listening to this, you've probably bought or seen those horrible, I wouldn't say horrible, those not great Vistaprint cards. They do have a good quality Vistaprint card, but the free ones are terrible. They're poor quality, poor paper. I would never have anybody get those. I usually, when I have bought the Vistaprint card, I have purchased the ones that are of good quality, that have of good paper. that are glossy or a satin finish. So always pay for the upgrades. But by the time you do that, you could hire a local person printer, support the local community. Maybe you're going to pay a few cents more, but you're going to first of all support a local company, and you're going to get a better quality. And when you need them, you can call them up, and they usually have everything right there for you. They can make the changes for you. You don't have to go and spend your time designing them, which is, if your time is valuable, then you're going to want somebody else to design them for you. So no poor quality. Timing, again, don't poor timing. By that I mean, don't just hand your business card out to somebody unless, first of all, they've asked for it, and at the appropriate time during the conversation. So if you just started talking to somebody and, you've introduced yourself, let me give you my business card. First of all, you never say let me. Say, may I give you my business card? And you wait until you've had a little bit of a conversation. And of course, there are exceptions. For instance, if you were on your way out and someone says, hey, I need your business card, that's okay. But I make a habit of never giving my card out unless someone asks for it. And I don't take a card from someone unless I plan to use it. No drive-by networking. Big don't. And the people, they go around, they meet as many people as they can, they get a stack of business cards, and then they go home and they spam them. Now, we could spend a whole day talking about how to follow up, which we're going to talk about a little bit in the next section. But for the most part, just keep these do's and don'ts in mind. And of course, one of my favorite networkers of all time says, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And of course, that's the famous Bob Berg, author, speaker, celebrity entrepreneur, an amazing, amazing man. So keep that in mind. Be likable. You want to be trustworthy, and you want to get out there and get known. So in the last section, we're going to talk about what to do after the networking event.